Hi everyone, Scott here, and it's kind of late at night and I need to speak softly, but I wanted to make an additional video about the last Hitchcock movie I saw. I've made it the policy of the CineRam YouTube channel that I not start the next Hitchcock movie until I'm finished making a video about the previous one. And I was kind of dissatisfied with the video that I made last week about the film Rebecca. I am about to watch Suspicion with Cary Grant and Joan Fontaine, but before I do, I'd like to share a few more thoughts about Rebecca before moving on. I said a few things about how this movie, I felt uncomfortable during a lot of this movie, and I'd like to sort of expand on that and also maybe get into some spoilers about the ending. If you're planning on seeing this film, I would recommend not watching this video until you do so, because I'm going to talk a little bit about the ending, which is something that I didn't want to do in the official Rebecca reaction video. But I've had a little bit more time to think about it, and I'm not sure, I don't think I covered this in the previous video, but after thinking about it for a bit, the movie that Rebecca reminded me of was actually Training Day, because of the way Ethan Hawke is concerned about how he's coming off to Denzel Washington, how he's being judged by Denzel, who is possibly going to recruit him into his unit and do drug busts and things like that. Right from the very beginning, he's a bit nervous and worried about making the wrong impression, saying the wrong thing, doing something dumb, and that's kind of the situation that the main character in Rebecca is in as well. So it kind of reminded me of that. The reasons why her husband, her new husband, is behaving the way he does towards her are things that aren't revealed until late in the picture, at least the second half of the picture. Until this point, everyone is talking about how great Rebecca was, the first wife of her new husband. They're talking about how beautiful she was, what a great society woman she was. You know, she would host parties, everything like that. Everyone liked her. And then we learn more about her as the story goes on, and we find out she wasn't really that nice. One of the people, of course, who the Joan Fontaine character, the main character of Rebecca, is most worried about displeasing is Mrs. Danvers, the head of the housekeepers. And there's a scene, a very, very strange scene, in which she invites Rebecca to come into... No, she doesn't invite her in. Sorry, not Rebecca. I keep forgetting that the main character is not named Rebecca. The main character has no name in this movie. She's never referred to anybody other than Mrs. De Winter or the second Mrs. De Winter, because everyone's always talking about the first one, who is Rebecca. The rooms that Rebecca occupied when she was still alive, she apparently perished in a boating accident, are kept exactly the way they were. And when she sneaks in there to have a look around, Mrs. Danvers finds her there, and instead of scolding her, she says, "Look at this beautiful room. Look at the view of the ocean. Look at how the light comes in. Look at all of Rebecca's things. You know, look at her coat. Feel how soft it is. You know, look at her underwear," everything like that. It's really, really strange. And after a couple of days, I wondered whether or not I'd seen that scene elsewhere. It seemed a little bit familiar. And then I remembered that there's a documentary that came out in the mid-90s called The Celluloid Closet, which is all about gay characters and gay coding in older Hollywood movies, and how they'd sort of sneak the subtext and the themes in there, without the censors really being aware of it. And I think this is probably... I looked on the page, basically, for the film as far as the clips that they use, and Rebecca is in fact one of those films that they showed a clip of, and I'm pretty sure that they showed that scene. It's been quite a number of years since I've seen the documentary, but it seems like Mrs. Danvers had a fixation on Rebecca that may have been sexual in nature, and they couldn't say that out loud at the time, but that's sort of implied. And at the end of the movie, again, getting into spoilers right here, when we find out all there is to know about Rebecca and the fact that she actually wasn't a very nice person, that she treated her husband badly, and that her death, though accidental, wasn't entirely she wasn't entirely without blame in her own death, basically. She was doing something really bad, and she sort of got killed as karma, I guess you could say. And once Mr. De Winter, her husband, was cleared of any wrongdoing, Mrs. Danvers goes a little nuts when she finds out, and she burns the mansion down because she can't bear to live in a world in which Rebecca, the woman that she was obsessed with, isn't, revered by everyone around her, I suppose. It's kind of a strange ending. One of the awards, one of the Oscars that Rebecca was nominated for was for visual effects. And I think that probably has to do with the model that they used in the very beginning of the movie. They show the mansion from the outside, but it's clearly a miniature. And there are also some, I wouldn't say, probably rear projection shots in the film, where we have basically characters walking around outside. There's a scene of Mr. and Mrs. Danvers walking the dog, and although they have distant shots of them walking around outside, and a shot basically of the feet as they're walking the dog, when it comes to the upper portions of the body, when they're showing them basically from the waist up walking along and talking, it's actually them walking on a treadmill with a moving background behind them. Or maybe it's an optical processing shot, I'm not really sure, but it's clearly not the same type of shot that they used for the actual environment. I'm not really sure why they did that. Maybe maybe it was due to sound recording. They wanted to make sure the dialogue was cleared, so they didn't shoot outside so the wind wouldn't interfere. But one of the special effects shots, I guess you could say, was when the house is collapsing and it's burning up, and there's a shot that actually moves into the bedroom where we see Rebecca's bed in her own wing. And there's the monogram, basically, the monogram pillowcase with a big R on it. But it looked to me like they actually mounted an object in front of the lens and set it on fire, rather than set the set on fire, at least for that one shot right there. So the flames actually seem to be moving with the camera, rather than it being a stationary, flame that the camera is moving over. Kind of strange. I don't know why they would do it that way exactly, except maybe, it was just easier than burning up the set and moving the camera through the set. They just have a burning item or object of some kind mounted before the camera lens, just below frame. So it looks like the room is on fire, even though the fire is moving with the camera. That's a little unrealistic, but it's something I just noticed. And I talked in a previous video about how just strange Mr. Winter scene, sorry, getting really bad with the names. Laurence Olivier, right? He plays Maxim De Winter, the husband, and just how strange their courtship was, and how they just didn't talk, and then he just proposes marriage out of nowhere. And there's the sleeping arrangements, which are also kind of strange. Mrs. De Winter, the new Mrs. De Winter, has her own bedroom and her own little office, I guess you could say. And rather than, and I put that down to it being pre-code or just the censors saying you can't have a couple in bed together. You can't show them sharing a bed or even a bedroom where they both sleep. They have to be separate. But it could be down to just the way things were in this era. I'm really not sure. Maybe that was a regular thing, that a couple that was married actually slept in separate bedrooms until we got to, the certain point when it came to, conceiving kids. Not really sure. But yeah, the whole relationship seemed kind of weird, and his reactions to some of the things that his new wife would do, seemed really bizarre. But then we find out that he's being reminded of Rebecca, and those memories are not good. And once we sort of find out more about how awful Rebecca was to her, then the two of them get a lot closer, and they get a lot warmer to each other. And they don't even actually have a kiss until like close to the end of the movie, at which point they're acting more like a couple that's in love. Whereas before they said they were in love, but they really didn't act like it. So I think that's all the stuff that I wanted to share about the film at this point right there. I felt like I needed to say a little bit more before moving on to Suspicion, which is the next movie that I'm going to watch, and that video will be coming out in a couple days. Thanks for watching, and again, if you'd like to see any other videos that I've done for this playlist, the link is below in the description, and you can also check out my CineRam Facebook page for any new video that I may make. See, take it easy.